Today, I'd like to talk about the First National Bank of Lindsay in Oklahoma, which was seized by the FDIC on Friday. They said there was something like running double books or something, and the FDIC feels that we're going to lose around $43 million. So, why do we care? Well, here's the announcement by the FDIC that they have seized the bank, and that they give all the rules in the article. And they tell people to keep making your loans and everything, but that's not what we really care about. What we care about here is that, well, I guess it's like the fourth paragraph, the big paragraph on the left-hand side here. And what it says is, if you have more than, if you're a business owner, right, and you have more than $250,000 in the bank, that if you want to access it, you then have to call this number to get it, and that it will be paid out if there's enough money left over after they sell all the assets. So in the news yesterday afternoon, which caught my eye, was someone went on and came out and said, hey, I'm a businessman. I had 400,000 at Lindsay, and guess what? They told me I can have 250, but the other 150,000 I have to wait for if it's ever going to come. So here's the issue, right? They're saying that if you're under the 250,000, which is what FDIC insures for, no problem, you get your money. But if you're over the 250, you may or may not get your money. And given the circumstances with banks, I would argue they have no chance of getting their money back, or very, very little chance. So what does this mean, and why do we care? I did a video now, when SVB and First Republic went bankrupt. And it was all about that the FDIC is a self-insuring agency, meaning that the banks pay into the FDIC fund so that there's insurance. So after the three banks, there was a special assessment that went out to all the banks. And like in Bank of America's last earnings, they told us that their special assessment turned out to be $2.1 billion. So you can figure out everybody else's from there, okay? And, but that's not the story. The story is that all the banks bitterly complained about the FDIC and that they bailed out all the deposits, everything over 250, and they now had to pay for it. So they're saying, look, we have to pay for the FDI insurance. We get it. But you're insuring deposits that aren't insured by the FDIC. And this was down to really SVB, Silicon Valley Bank, all right? And the two big guys that we bailed out there for $50 billion was that guy Sachs and Chomp. They had their subscription for their 3,000 companies listed there, and the FDIC, for whatever reason, took that onto their balance sheets. They have not been able to sell one thing in 2 years, and we gave Chomp and Sachs their money so that they can run their podcast telling us all how to invest. And so the banks were extremely upset. So what do we care? Well, we already know the numbers, that when we had the three banks have their issue, they were all medium-sized banks. They're large in the general sense of things, but medium-sized when you look at a JP Morgan, Bank of America, and so forth, okay? And we know that the deposits fled from the smaller and mid-sized banks into the big GSIB banks, JP Morgan, Bank of America, and so forth. And there's a reason for this. The reason is this. The GSIB, so named as globally systemic important banks, okay, we have them here. There's 29 in the world. I think we have 6 or 8 here. I forget now. Doesn't matter. All the money fled into them because the FDIC is an explicit guarantee of assets under 250,000 and under. Okay, that's the FDIC. It's explicit. With the GSIBs, there's this implicit. It's not legal. Okay, it's not written in law, but there's an implicit guarantee for these big banks. The G-SIBs, remember what it stands for: globally, systemically important, meaning that the countries around the world has said these 29 banks, they can't go bankrupt. Okay, they just can't. We did this in the great financial crisis. We're not going to do it again. So, billions and billions of dollars left our small banks and went to the implicitly guaranteed, right? And that was when we paid all the deposits off. And now, for the first time, we're not. So it's only $43 million. We don't know how much the depositors have going to eat on this one, but you can see that if this continues along these way, we're not going to have 4,400 banks in this country, because the deposits, or a good portion of them, or everything over 250,000 minimum, is going to leave those banks. And a lot of banks can go belly up. So you can see the FDIC has Sophie's choice. Either they charge the banks special assessments to pay for all the deposits, not just the insured deposit, or they just pay for the insured deposit and set up the scenario where all those deposits are going to leave our little banks, send them down, and everything goes up to our big banks. What do you think? Should we pay the deposits? Is the FDIC making the right decision? I have no idea. Like and follow, and certainly let me know in the comments.